In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Windows Video Editor. Now, what Windows Video Editor allows us to do is take existing pictures or videos or both and combine them into one cohesive file where we can add transitions, music, 3D effects, 3D elements, things like that to really make our projects kind of pop. So I'm going to show you this explanation of how to use Video Editor by using the images that you see on your screen here, which is a chicken coop that I made for a good friend of mine a couple of years ago, just taking some progress photos along the way. Got to have something to start with, might as well be a chicken coop. So just know that you can start with videos, or you can start with existing video clips, or both. Okay, now there's a couple different ways that you can first start up Video Editor. Now the first way is you can of course go to Windows Explorer and you can open up or search Video Editor that way. But the way that I like to do it, since typically when I start a video project, is I have all of my media files located in one folder. So for this example, they're all just placed in a folder called Video Project, and I have my 12 or so pictures here that I know that I want to incorporate into a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them. Just hit select Control A, or draw a box around them and select them all. Then I'm going to right click on one of them and go to Create New Video. Now what that's going to do, it's going to open up Windows Video Editor for us, and it's also going to import all of those videos into our project library. Now it's going to ask for a video name, so I'm just going to name this Chicken Coop. You could change that name later if you needed to. But what it did is it took all those pictures and it put it into our project library. Now it's important to know that anything that you want to put into your video, or into your final video project I should say, needs to be in your project library. So you can always add more media to the project library just by clicking on Add and then searching it from your PC or collection, or even from the web, however you want to find it. Okay, so this is kind of your hub of where all of your raw data is. So in order to start creating our actual video, we have to locate our media into our storyboard. Okay, now there's a couple different ways that I could take things from the project library into the storyboard. Of course, the first way I can do it is I can click on any one of these videos and simply drag it, drop it into my storyboard. But since I know that all of these pictures need to be in my storyboard, I'm going to select them all, and I can either drag and drop them all down, or I can click on Place in Storyboard, and it drops them all down into the storyboard. Okay, now it's important to know that whatever order or whatever sequence your pictures are in your project library, when you do it like this, that's how it's going to portray in your storyboard. But let's say that I have these pictures swapped, right? I want to see this picture before this picture. You can literally just drag and drop pictures in your storyboard to make them fit whatever sequence that you'd like, and you could do that with videos as well. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that anytime you bring anything from your project library into your storyboard, the little thumbnails up in your project library are going to have these little blued folded over tabs. And that just lets you know that that piece of media is actually in your storyboard. So that's kind of handy to see, especially if you have 50, 60, 100 photos in there and you can't remember if you included it or not. You can always take a look at those thumbnails and see what that looks like. Okay, so a couple things to note in the storyboard now. So we have our thumbnails in our storyboard, and we have some information here. So the first piece of information is if we look on the bottom left of each one of these images, first of all, it has this little picture of a mountain that tells us that this is actually an image file as opposed to a video file. Now to the right hand side here, this is our slide transition. So as our video plays, it's going to tell me how long this transition stays active for in the video before it transitions over to the next one. All right, so let's just say, to give you an example of that, on the top right here we have our preview screen, which I'm going to slide this back to my first slide. I'm going to hit play. You notice that every 3 seconds the video changes. All right, so let's say that I want to speed that up a little bit. Okay, so I can click on, say, this one video right here, and let me just select it, and I can go to duration. And I can change the duration. There's some presets here for 1 second, 2 second, 3, 5, 7, or I can customize how long I want. So let's just say this one slide is going to be a 1 second transition. You'll see that down here. It tells me that I now have a 1 second transition. So let's go preview. It's going to last for a second, and it's going to kick right over. Okay, so that's one way that you can do it. Another way that we can do it is say that I want everything to have the same amount of durations. I can go ahead and select on all of these, whoops, and hit Control A, not Control Z, and then I can select duration, and I'm going to put them all to, let's just say, 2 seconds. and they all switch to 2. Again, let's say that's not long enough. I can switch them to 5. You get the idea. You can change things around as you need to. Okay, so another thing that we can do here is you'll see that we have add a title card. Now this is nice, it gives you a little effect to kind of intro or introduce different parts of your video. So I'm going to click on add a title card, and you see it pops it right in the beginning here. So I'm going to select that title card. Let's see, hit escape a couple times to get out of it. And I'm going to go to text. That's what I wanted to do. I had a little memory lapse there for a second. And this is what I'm going to have pop up in my screen. So I'm going to type in chicken coop. And we have different animated text styles here. So right now it's on simple. Right now I'm going to drag this slider bar back, and you see as I change my slider bar, it changes my time or my duration of my actual slide. And I could see it in slow motion if I want to slide it, but I could also hit play, and I could see how that transition slide is going to show up. I could change the background if I wanted to, but it's a good idea to kind of go through each one of these and check them out because they all have their different transition, their own different style to them. That one kind of fades in. This joy one's one of my favorite ones because it's got a lot of effects to it. So if I hit play on that, kind of pops up, gives it a little different animation, and you could change the different layouts and how everything plays out. Right, so play with this, check out, see what works for you, what works best, but it's always a good idea to have a title card in there to start off with. So I'm okay with this. I'm going to leave it just as that funky one, and I'm going to hit done. So now that I have that in there, as I make my different transitions, I can always check how my video looks up on my preview screen. I can fast forward, I can come back, and you'll see as I change this time slider here, it also changes what story or what piece of media my storyboard is at. So I always know exactly where I am in time. Okay, so let's try something else. So let's say we have let's do a transition. All right, so what that means is if I'm looking at this slideshow, all I'm going to see is this very still image right here. There's not a whole lot to look at. But if I click on motion right here, I can then add different zoom motions or zoom out motions. So let's say right now it's selected for none. If I click on zoom to center, during those 3 seconds that I'm looking at this image, or 5 seconds looking at this image, it's actually going to zoom in. Right, you can kind of see it occurring there. It's zooming in. The corners are kind of fading back. I could also zoom out. See that one a little easier. You could zoom out to the right. So you could change all these different effects or all these different motions on your slides to give a still image a little bit of character, a little bit of life. All right, so I'm okay with that for now. And I'm going to recommend that every single one of your slides has some type of motion, just to give it a little more of effect. Okay, so let's take a look at some other stuff in here. I know I'm zipping through this kind of quick, but let's click on this first one, or this first framing image here, and let's say that I want to add some text to this to say, hey, look, it's all framed up. The chicken coop's framed. It's ready to be sheathed in. So I'm going to click on text. And again, I can change my different type of text that I put in here. I'm just going to type framed walls. Now that's a little too much, right? I don't want all of that, all of this stuff going over the top of my picture. So I'm going to change this back to simple. And see right here we have framed walls. Let's see what that does. So one thing down here is this. See how this is kind of blued out in my slider down here? That tells me how long this framed walls text is going to remain in my photo. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. Let's just take a quick little preview. So if I click on play, framed walls, then it disappears. All right, so let's change. Let's say it's going to go down a little bit, and I'm going to move my framed walls to the middle because I want someone to see my framed walls first. Then I want them to see the text saying framed walls, and then I want that text to go away. So let's see what that looks like. So framed walls pops up, then it goes away. All right, so again, here if you want, you could always change. Let's just go back to, let's change it to adventure, see what happens here. Let's play it from the beginning, not from the middle. So there's the picture, there's my effect, and then it goes away. And then I could change how long that effect is there by changing the duration of my blue bar. I'm sure there's a fancy name for that, just don't know what it is. And there we go. So that's one way to add a text effect. Okay, so we add the text effect there. Now let me show you something else that you could add to your media. So let's just select a different video here. Let's say, I don't know, let's just click on this one. Another thing we could do is we can add 3D effects. All right, so these are a lot of fun. You can do a lot of cool things with these. So I'm going to click on 3D effects. And we have all of these different, let me clear this out, it's my recent ones. We have all these different effects on here that we can add to our still image, right? So let's say that we have, I don't know, a dust explosion, because I have all these rocks here. So I'm just going to drag and drop this dust explosion right over my rocks. And it's kind of hard to see now because, well, it's dust, but I could change how big that explosion is, and I'll do a different one so we can show a little more effect here. But let's see what this looks like. Again, I have my blue effect duration, which tells me how much dust explosion I'm going to have. I also have a sound effect that goes along with this dust explosion. All right, so let's see what happens. So I'm going to drag this back, and I'm going to hit play. And we have a dust explosion. All right, so again, I could change the duration of my dust explosion. Let's see if I can take it, I'm going to move it out of the way. I could rotate it, I could move it around, do whatever I need to that explosion. And again, I could view it again. Right, just something fun that we can do with it. But let's say that I want to start with, I don't know, maybe a fire first inside of my rocks that then turns into a dust explosion. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete my dust explosion, and I'm going to go to my effects, and let's see, I know there's fire in here somewhere. There's some fire, so I'm going to take campfire. I'm going to put campfire right here, and again, this is where you can kind of see it a little better of how big I make things, and you can rotate them around. You can adjust them however you need to do that. So now what I want to do is I want to have my effect duration right at the beginning, because I want fire first, then an explosion later. All right, so I'm going to have that, let's see what it looks like. So we're going to have a fire crackling. All right, and then right after that fire crackling, I want to add an explosion. So I'm going to go back to my effects and go back to a dust explosion. And we'll put that right over the top. And you'll see my dust explosion is around, let's see how that looks. So just to give you an idea of how you could add multiple effects into one image, and you have to change, exactly. My dust explosion was a little early. Maybe I'll bring it a little later on. Let's try that. And we can adjust things as needed in our video. Okay, so that's one other thing that you can do. Let's try something else. Let's take I don't know. Let's look at the inside here. We have a little roosting area, and let's put an effect in there. Let's put a 3D asset in there. So I'm going to go back to 3D effects, and then instead of effects, I'm going to use my 3D library. So if I go here, I want to find, well, let's see if we could find a chicken or a chick or something close to that. So let's go to animals and insects. Let's see what we have in here. I didn't check to see if there was a chicken. There's a chicken right there. Perfect. So I'm going to click on chicken. It's going to import it into my my project. It's going to take a moment. All right, there's my chicken. Now I'm going to bring my chicken. I'm going to rotate my chicken around. Maybe size my chicken like this. See if I can't put my chicken on the floor. Just put the chicken right here. All right. And here's the thing, if I don't do anything with this chicken, all that chicken's going to do is just kind of, whoops, hit the wrong button. That's what the chicken's going to do. So the chicken doesn't really do anything, just kind of sits there. Nothing's really happening. Well, that's when I can go back into my effect here, click on my chicken, and I can add some quick animations in there. So let's say that jump and turn. Let's see what that chicken does with jump and turn. So the chicken literally jumps and turns around. All right, let's see it in actual live. All right, so kind of corny, kind of quirky, but you can add some different stuff to that. But what I really like about the 3D library effects is they are dynamic, meaning, let me just take this chicken. I'm going to turn it to none just so the chicken's just kind of standing there. And now I'm going to take an effect, and I'm going to use that same, let's try the campfire one again. I'm going to put this campfire right in front of the chicken. And I'm going to turn the volume off on the campfire. And you'll notice that when I place the fire, you kind of already see it, that there's a little shadow effect on the chicken because the fire gives off that ambient light. So I want to see what that looks like with a fire next to my chicken. So even though the chicken isn't doing anything, the chicken is reflecting the light that's coming off of that light source. Again, don't be afraid to take the effects and the library assets and mix them together to make your whatever you need to do for your video. Okay, so moving along, let's check out another thing called filters. So let's pick an image that we haven't played with yet. Let's say, I don't think we messed with this one yet. So we'll click on this one, and then we can change filters, right? And filters can be good, especially like this image is a little overexposed. It's kind of bright on the front side and really shadowy in the back. So I'm going to go to my filters, and then I can add different filter effects. No different than the filters on a cell phone camera, where you can add different effects to that image just to make it look a little different or change it if things are a little weird. I'm going to go with, I don't know, I'll just click on this joy one just for whatever reason. And filters really don't do anything effect-wise except for put that filter over the image. Okay, so I'm going to click done on that. And let's say that I've gone through, I've added all my effects and my 3D assets and everything like that. It's also a good idea to take a title card and add it to the very end just to kind of close things out. Now, the title card is kind of inserted in front of the last image that I was working with. So I'm going to take my title card and I'm going to drag it all the way to the end. And I'm going to change my text on that, and we'll go to, let's just pick, I don't know, pixel. And I'm okay with that, and that kind of closes things up. All right, so now I can go through and I see that my total length of my video is 1 minute 6 seconds long. All right, but there's another thing I could do here. So if I play through this, it's great, it's a nice visual representation, but I want to add some music to this. So to do that, what I'm going to do is up in the top, I can click on background music. All right, so if I click on background music, right now it's currently set to none. But there's a lot of preset music that's already in here. Okay, and the cool thing about this is you can preview each one by hitting this play preview button here, and I won't go through all of them in this video, but please take your time and go through them if you'd like. But the really nice thing about this is depending on the music that you choose, some may be kind of slow and easy, and others may be upbeat, and sometimes you actually want your video presentation to be synced up with the music. You can do that very easily here just by selecting this check mark and syncing up that music, or syncing up the slide transitions with your music's beat. Quite honestly, I never really had good luck with this, just because I'm not a video editor by profession. I'm sure there's easier ways to do it, but I've always found that just having the music go over the top and I select my slide durations independently, I find that I have a better product. But please feel free to give this a shot and see if this works out for your video. All right, so let's say that I want to go with amplified, and I'm going to click on done, and it automatically adds all that music into my video. Now you can also put custom audio in here, right? So if you had a piece of music that you've created yourself, or you have some music that you own, or you get something off of a website such as bensound.com, which is a great place to get other background music, you can import it from there as well. All right, so typically this process takes quite a while, right? There's a lot to video editing. There's a lot of little changes. I'm going to check something, change something, check something, change something, and kind of go back and forth. But once you're done, you need to export this file into something that you can share, right? So to do that, you're going to go up to Finish Video, and you could choose your video quality, and we're going to keep it at high, and then you're going to export it, and then you can export to an MP4 file. Okay, so I'm going to go into my Chicken Coop video project folder, chickencoop.mp4, and click on export. And it'll, depending on the size of your video and how many pictures to videos you have as your project library, it's going to depend on how long this exports, but we'll give this a moment to do its magic. All right, and it gives us a preview. All right, so I won't play through all that, but in your project folder, in the Google Classroom project, I did put some examples of some different architecture type based videos that just to kind of give you an idea of what you can do with the different slide transitions and the motions and the effects and whatnot. Please keep in mind, those are all very basic videos. What I'm looking for from you guys is a little more. I'm looking for a really good use of those effects and sounds and really get creative with it. So any questions, please come up and see me, and I'll give you a hand.